Welcome to the podcast that is all about the world of direct marketing, especially on television. This is a special edition of Are We on the Air?
One of Chester County's biggest employers is cutting 400 jobs. The parent company of Westchester-based QVC is reporting sluggish sales and a major decline in revenue. Action News reporter Katie Catro live for us now outside of the QVC headquarters with the details on these proposed cuts. Katie.
And Shari, county officials that we spoke with say they are determined to help these employees who were laid off find jobs.
QVC is my store.
It's pretty much my lifeline.
QVC's parent company, Curate Retail, suffered big losses in revenue in 2022, and in part of a cost-saving plan, it is cutting 400 QVC and HSN employees. The company said, quote, "These decisions are not easy but are necessary in realigning how we manage the business and heighten focus on critical priorities." Two longtime on-air hosts laid off are Dan Hughes and Carolyn Gracie. Both posted farewell messages on their Facebook pages. Are you going to miss watching them?
Yeah, I watch Dan in the morning a lot, so yeah, I will. I hope he'll come back. I watch Carolyn. She does a lot of gardening shows.
While it's unknown how many of these 400 employees live in Chester County, commissioners say they are working to help with employment opportunities.
Our employment rate is so low, so there are a lot of jobs that are available. And QVC has such talent that I'm sure anybody would love to have those employees.
Laura Mannion is the CEO of the Chester County Chamber of Business and Industry and hopes the company doesn't make more cuts because it's a vital part of the economy.
The economic impact that they have, in our restaurants, our businesses, our shops, it's important to support them as well through this time.
Now, Curate Retail Group says it does plan to offer severance pay, benefits, and other services to those employees laid off. Reporting live in Westchester, Katie Catro, Channel 6, Action News. Rick and Shari.
Two longtime QVC hosts are saying farewell to the network. Carolyn Gracie and Dan Hughes both announced their departures from QVC on Wednesday, bringing their long tenures to an end. Viewers watched Carolyn on screen for 19 years, and Dan for 33 years. Carolyn broke the, quote, bittersweet news to fans on social media, writing in part, "After 19 years, I am no longer working at QVC. I have loved every minute of my time there, especially the opportunity to get to know all of you. You have been the most cherished part of my job as a QVC host, and have shared your friendship with me through good times and bad, through challenges and triumphs. I am so grateful for you." Carolyn encouraged fans to keep up with her on social media, writing in part, "You won't want to miss all the fun with pets, gardening, RVing, and so much more. Let's make sure we stay friends for life. I can't imagine it any other way. Remember what I always say, don't dilly-dally. I can't wait to share my next chapter with you." Dan shared his announcement on Facebook. It read in part, "After a tenure of 33 years, it has come time for me and QVC to part ways. I say so with nothing less than gratitude to those who have supported me and worked with me over the years. Even more so, I want to express my appreciation to you, the viewers, who built this amazing community, and I hope you continue to do so for many years to come." He also encouraged fans to keep in touch and added in part, "It has been a wonderful and lengthy ride, more than I ever expected, and as always, I am humbled by your kindness." Fans were sad to see both go, and sent them love in the comment section of their posts. QVC has yet to officially comment on Carolyn and Dan's exits, and Access Hollywood has reached out to the network. Their goodbye posts come one day after QVC's parent company, Curate Retail Group, announced that they were letting go 400 employees from QVC and from the Home Shopping Network, and that day would be those employees' last at the company. It has not been confirmed if Carolyn and Dan were among those laid off.
That is pure class. Dan and Carolyn, who were indeed let go as part of this, it's well assumed, sad situation at QVC and HSN. Also at HSN, for those that don't know, the Shannons were both let go. And so 4 hosts, legendary hosts too, which I think is what makes this all the more shocking. It's not like newbies were let go, but people that combined, I did the math, and you get close to 75 years of experience among these people. In fact, I think it was more than 75 years of experience among all of these hosts. So it's dramatic to have those 4 go. Why is the show starting this way? Because this is part of a bigger picture. I'm going to get Marvin Segel on here in just a few minutes, son of QVC founder Joe Segel, to go into a little bit more detail about this. But the QVC numbers came out for the fourth quarter of 2022, which again includes the holiday season, and their year-end numbers for the entire fiscal year, and they're abysmal. There's no other way to put it. We are watching and I'm not going to be overly dramatic, the downfall of a shopping empire. It's sad to observe. Before we get Marvin on here, I just want to go over these numbers quickly, and I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of numbers. And this is just QVC and HSN sales. It's not counting QVC International, Cornerstone, because they have other units. Their sales in the fourth quarter of 2022, this is holiday season, this is the important time of year, were down 11%. For the entire year, down an equal 11%. When you break it down by product category, fourth quarter, home sales down 13%, electronics down 14%, apparel down 15%, beauty down 6%, accessories down 10%, jewelry down 11%. Every product category was down, and it's no better for the year. Again, 13% home, 20% electronics, 4% apparel, 9% beauty, 12% accessories, 13% jewelry. The customer counts, and I'll let Marvin maybe even get more into detail on this, were down across the board, whether it's existing customers, new customers, or reactivated customers. So it's where did they go? Where are they? And what can QVC do to right this ship? That is the topic, and that is the focus of this special edition of Are We on the Air? Okay, well, let's add Marvin to this conversation here. Marvin being Marvin Segel, whom many of you, if you've been listening to the show for a while now, have heard. He's been on, I just looked back, actually, he was on episode 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 47. So he is back to shed his expertise here. For those that don't know, it was Marvin's father who started QVC back in 1986, Joseph Segel. So Marvin brings his expertise to the conversation. Marvin was just chatting about the QVC numbers in that whole yearly report. What stood out to you most? What of everything there really leapt out at you?
It's a very simple formula for TV shopping. I think obviously there's a lot of brilliant people that will describe what is needed to make it successful, but it's very simply customer count, average selling price, and purchase frequency. That's it. And when all those things are going down, that's a bad spiral. And the customer count I think the customer count is equivalent to 2019 if you look at the PowerPoint presentation they have online. I mean, I would like to divorce myself from the numbers, but I keep getting drawn back in because, I did vendor relations at both QVC and Shop NBC, and I maintain great friendships and relationships with those companies. So whenever something happens, they call me. Like, I'm still doing vendor relations there. Like, Marv, what should I do? What do you think's happening? No different than us doing this podcast right now. But the customer count to me stood out the most.
Let me break that down because I've got it in front of me here, because Marvin's right. If you look at, and this is the last 12 months, so ending December 2022. They break it down into three areas, and I want to go over this with Marvin because there's three categories. There's reactivated, there's new, and there's existing. Now, they were all down across the board, but of the three, which is the one, new, reactivated, or existing, that is of the biggest concern to a company like QVC?
Well, I look at it again, when I look at, I'm going to call it from their own PowerPoint presentation, they're now below December 2019.
Right. In all those areas.
In all those areas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that one's any more important than the other. And I remember when I used to be on air there was literally a computer monitor as you walked past the operations desk, and it would have new customers today. And if that number was ever not going up, I mean, there'd be hell to pay, and they'd look at what's going on that day. Well, look at the trend they're now in, and again, I know we're going to get into it, but it's their, I believe, and I don't want to just pick on them, but the whole industry is missing the boat, and especially with the layoffs of show hosts. The show hosts are basically their influencers playing to the base. And you just got rid of one that's been there 33 years.
We're talking about Dan.
Dan Hughes. Yeah. I mean, that is just, again, somebody sent me a text message. Do you think they did this because of their sales, because of this, because of that? And I was like, I just don't think they get it. I don't think they understand it. I really don't.
And to be fair, also over at HSN, which again is under the QVC umbrella now.
Yeah. Now, by the way, I don't want to interrupt you, but also Carolyn at QVC.
Right.
It's just that Dan is a personal friend.
Right. Yeah. And Shannon Smith, a friend of mine who was let go from Home Shopping Network. I used to work with her back 30 plus years ago in Minneapolis. So, so some very experienced and really legendary hosts were let go. And I think, Marvin, you just tied in with something I was going to bring up later, but I'll jump down to this because are the current hosts, let's take the veterans out, are they able to reach the customer in the way that a Dan Hughes or a Shannon Smith or a Carolyn was able to?
Well, Dan in particular, and again, I'm picking on him because he's a friend, that Dan did NASCAR. I know this because of some other work I had done in the past. NASCAR has the second largest fan base next to soap operas.
Yeah, good point.
And if you look at the posts that are out there on social media, I mean, each one, and there's many of them, and it was even picked up on the Today Show. It showed up on their news feed about the show host being let go. And every one of those has hundreds, if not 1,000 plus responses. So it's got a lot of traction. And it's really, really unfortunate, in my opinion, the decisions, the direction. And I know many people that have been around a long, long time that are vendors, vendor reps, et cetera, that are quite frankly shocked by what just recently happened. I don't know why this one hit home more. Because of the reputation of these people, I just don't know. But I think it proves that they don't understand the basics of what is happening in the world. I mean, I was out all day Friday shooting another video, not to get off subject, with an influencer, the Wellness Kitchenista, and we had at this video shoot 2 other influencers. The collective influencer network of those 3 people was over 4 million followers. Wow. And that's the secret sauce going forward.
Yeah.
But nobody's doing it. We're doing it.
Yeah, Marvin just totally threw the wind out of the sail I was about to throw out here, because I just pulled up Dan Hughes' Facebook, which to QVC's credit, they've left up. So I have to give them some credit for that. And he does have 55,000 followers and 9,600 comments over his farewell. But to your point, 55,000, I was just going to say, wow, what a big number, but versus 1 million? I mean, that's the world that we're in today.
Right. I mean, we're not engaging with anybody in what we're doing that doesn't have at least 500,000 to 1 million followers. But this video, and I'll make sure you're copied on it when it gets edited.
Please.
Is all about healthy cooking, healthy eating, and again, that's the future. Using people with a social media following in the food space, and I'm very proud of what's coming out. But again, the shopping channels just are not doing it. Their version of an influencer is a show host. Actually, I have this piece here. I know this is not going to work because we're a podcast, but my father was I can't believe I have this here, was interviewed in Bella magazine. And this was after he passed away.
Right.
And there was a picture of my father and I, and it was basically the age of influencers. And it's saying, was Joe Segel the first influencer?
Oh,
think about
funny.
It. Right. But think about where we are now. And, even in the early days of QVC, when and I know I've said this before in your podcast, where my father had 2 game show developers or producers on his board, knowing before gamification had a name that he knew he had to keep the customer engaged.
Yeah.
And nobody's doing that. Everybody forgot. They don't know what their roots are. They don't know why the phrases are engraved in the floor as you walk down the main hall at QVC. I mean, my father's the one that came up with them. There was a reason for all that. But no one's there to know anymore.
When you watch QVC now, and just in a little bit, because I don't have a ton of time to watch anymore, but I get the sense that for the past few months, they have basically been throwing whatever they can against the wall to see what sticks. My next show, which is what I'm supposed to be doing today, is specifically about a show that they're doing on Friday nights now that's supposed to reach the over 50 customer, and it's a swing and a miss, but that we'll get to that next show. They've been doing dual hosted shows now, hosts that don't need to be out there with someone else. It's like why they're putting Kirsten Lindquist alongside another veteran host is a waste of talent, but it feels like they're just trying to do whatever they can now. And I think it goes back to your point because they don't know the history behind it.
You literally have to watch the movie Joy to understand the history. When my father started QVC, the show host was supposed to know everything.
Yeah,
there were no guests, and the movie basically portrays it semi-accurately that the mop goes on air with a guy. No offense to not being sexist. I've never mopped in my life. I suspect you probably have not either. And nor did that show host. It didn't go well. Yes. And Joy in the movie, and there's some arguments as to who she actually begged to go on air with the product. But she begged somebody, whether it was my father, whether it was another executive, but they let her go on air. And as legend goes, it sold out. And you need the expert to tell the story. When I used to do sales training, and if you remember, I did the on-air guest training of both QVC and Shop NBC, I would always say to the vendor guests, don't sell anything. Let the show host do that.
Yeah.
But you be the expert. Well, they're kind of losing that dynamic because they're not, they don't understand it. They don't have vendor relations. None of them do have vendor relations. They don't really have on-air guest training. And it's all going down the tubes because the secret sauce of what made it work back then is just not there. They're not out on the road. They don't have the 1550 tour. They don't have the bus for the exposure. They did a thing years and years ago, and whether this fits for your podcast right now or not, I'm not sure. I want to say it was North or South Carolina. QVC did a program called Move the Needle. And Move the Needle was they found a town where they had the least customers at QVC at the time. And they literally took what before its time was a pop-up store. And if you mentioned QVC at any Dunkin' Donuts, I believe it was, in the town, you got free coffee on QVC. And it was a concept of how many new customers could they sign up in that weekend. And people like myself, Cactus Jack, Borgnine, all these people were there giving out samples and, being on Main Street USA. And it worked. But again, no one's there to know how they got customers. It's almost like a political campaign. No matter how much money you spend, you got to be on the street knocking on doors.
But isn't this marketing 101? It's how do you get the new names? How do you get the new customers? We've talked before. You don't see QVC commercials anymore. I haven't seen a QVC commercial on television or Hulu or Netflix or anything, any place in 20 years.
They have tried. I mean, they have those shows they're doing now. There's like little mini series. And I've described them, and I'm not making a political statement. It's kind of like the NRA selling memberships at a Trump rally.
That's good. That's a good analogy. Yes.
Because they're promoting these little mini-series they've done on their own network.
Yep.
They're not going outside the network.
Yep.
Go back to the dynamic you mentioned that's going on right now with two show hosts. It should really be a show host, in my opinion, a product expert, and an influencer, basically, so that the influencer is bringing more eyeballs out of what was their channel. My classic example of that, way before its time, when my father was still chairman, was Jessica Simpson coming on air with a sugar-based body lotion. And the concept was, and I'm not making this up, you could lick it off your significant other. I thought my father was going to have a heart attack. They had enough of what they thought were 2 hour shows, 2 1-hour shows, and in 20 minutes, everything sold out. And she was an influencer. And it showed, how that stuff works. If you have the right guests with the right following, you can bring in new eyeballs.
This goes back to something I was thinking about just yesterday. And it's so funny that you bring this up because there was back in the 90s, there was a celebrity dynamic that I think Barry Diller. Let me go back to that because I've seen Barry Diller in a couple interviews recently. He was on Firing Line a couple weeks ago, and I saw him on CNBC a couple months ago. And it's interesting how in these interviews they don't even mention QVC anymore. They'll talk about his movie days, they'll talk about what he's doing now, but it's like this QVC just didn't exist in his biography anymore. But he helped get not influencers necessarily, but celebrities and put QVC on the map, and that's gone.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, again, I got to look at the book here. I have my little dog on my lap. Hang on a second.
Okay.
The book is An Incredible Dream. It's the Ralph Roberts biography. And you have to read that. There's a whole chapter dedicated to my father and QVC because Comcast was the first investor and the first carriage of QVC. And there was a time when Barry Diller came in. Barry Diller bought out my father as a friendly takeover.
Right.
It wasn't a hostile. It was friendly. He then tried to use the cash flow, which was, think about that, was so powerful that he was trying to use the cash flow of QVC to buy Paramount.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now. Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. There's a great backstory. It's in the book. And my father, I believe, was chairman of the board. And the board, using a term nowadays, ghosted him. That no one responded to him. So he couldn't get the meeting together to go make the bid for Paramount. And he, as the legend goes, he was really pissed. It expires. He then makes a bid to buy CBS. Right. He's in his private jet, flying from LA, landing at Teterboro Airport. While he's in the air, the board gets together, as I understand it, and Comcast buys controlling interest in QVC. Okay. Barry Diller lands, steps off his private jet. Right on the tarmac is Brian and Ralph Roberts, and Barry is saying, "Oh, this is really nice. You're going to go with me to make the offer." No, you're not making any offer. You're fired. Man. And that created the war back then between QVC and HSN, because then when he then went to HSN, yep, he started taking executives and vendors down there at the time. And that's all by the way, that book is a great read because it's the history of cable. I mean, Brian, and I know the family very well. They were at my father's wine tasting dinners. I mean, Brian and Ralph Roberts literally strung cable and telephone poles in Philadelphia. I mean, they did it, with sweat equity. I mean, they really did it. And they're great. I respect those people tremendously at Comcast.
I'll put a link to that in the notes here once the episode's up so people can find that book, because that does sound like a very good read. But if you think back, the other place I was going to go with this conversation is because back in the day there was this star power where, and I talked to Steve Bryant about this. I knew if Steve Bryant was doing a show, there's a chance there might be a Star Wars actor on or a Star Trek actor on, or it's just there were big names that walked through those doors of QVC. I couldn't name a celebrity anymore that is promoting, I'm going to be on QVC tomorrow. It's just, it doesn't happen anymore.
It does not happen anymore. The classic, and I will always respect her for it, was Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
My father had to beg Joan Rivers to come on air. Joan became very close to the family. Whenever I'd be walking the halls of QVC, I was going on air. If Joan was at the other end of the hallway, she would literally yell, "Marvin, how you doing? How's your family? How's your father? How's your mother?" I mean, always respected the family and what happened. And including when my father got the Lifetime Achievement Award for the Electronic Retailing Association, Joan flew in from London to present him the award in Las Vegas. And it was that reputation and obviously when she was successful, others followed that really did that. And by the way, that's a link you can also find. You can Google on YouTube the Joe Segel ERA Lifetime Achievement Award, and that's a great. It's a great video. It's hysterical. She's clear. And by the way, when she got up on stage, it was a surprise to my father. I went up to her room, escorted her down backstage, and sat back down at the table. And when she got up on stage, my father thought it was initially a Joan Rivers impersonator.
Really? Okay, well, there is our Orson Welles Time's Up signal, meaning that we are going to have to continue this on our next show. That went quick. Okay. Listen, I have to do a quick thank you to WPVI, Channel 6 in Philadelphia, and Access Hollywood for the clips we played at the start of the show. Want to remind you to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, Sean Wilsey. Just search my name. You'll find me there. Also, by the way, thank you if you're listening on an app that allows you to leave reviews and 5-star ratings. That always helps the show grow as well. I really do appreciate that, and we're growing nicely. So thank you again, Marvin. Back with us next show. I hope you will be as well. This has been a King Bobby production.
Yes, I know, Travis. That's why we give such bargains.